Welcome everyone to a special episode of Strong Opinions Loosely Held. This is our 17 in 17 episode, 17 logos in about 17 minutes. But first about me. My name is Curt, aka Curpop. I've been designing and building software for over 2 decades for over 1 billion people around the world. Now today, I'll be doing a design speed run of logo concepts for a fictional brand called Hammer Saw Paint that's going to be used in a future hackathon. And it's just in the realm of all things DIY, and that's all I'll say about it for now. And we'll get into it and talk a little bit about it. But before we get into it, I want to tell you about my sponsor for today, Bugsworth, where you can turn user bugs into user hugs with unlimited, affordable QA services. Everything from writing unit tests to vibe coding support, starting at just $99 a month. Bugsworth motto is flawless software starts here. That's bugsworth.com. Use the promo code WCC and get 2 months free. So let's get into our speed run, shall we? All right. Let's go. We'll go ahead and begin, and we will start this way back here, and we'll just start by going into Figma. That's our app that we use to start designing and kind of laying some things out. So as you'll see right now, I'll start with a simple word mark. Nothing special, just hammer, saw, paint, blah, blah, blah. And I'll just tune that up. And we're not really going to use it. It's mainly there. It's mainly there to just provide us a meaningful reminder, right? Hammer, saw, paint is really what we're trying to exude. I usually do this just to get a sense of flavor. So what you can see now on screen is I start doing kind of a graphical H, right? So that's just really because one of the things that I know as at this point is that I want one of the letters to really be the logo mark of the brand, right? So many times we see things just completely spelled out, and having 3 initials just seems a little crowded. So I start playing around with 2 basic shapes, and that's usually how I start. So I kind of like that. This is kind of the instinctual phase, right? So this is kind of like my first instincts, my first kind of thought. And what you'll see is just in my mind, you start to see like the shape of the left part of the H is kind of like the top of a hammer, right? And then so the other part is just an H so that people know and can recognize the H. So I've done 2 kind of varieties on this. And my method, especially using back in the day when I was using Photoshop and Illustrator, is to make just a design. And if I want to add some variety to it, I really just copy and paste it. One, so that I don't have to undo. I can just go right to it and start playing with it. And what you'll see here is I start kind of still playing with this graphical shape. I kind of like the H. You'll see kind of a small variation in just how much I'm playing with the H. One, so that people recognize that it's an H, of course. And then 2, that it's stylish in some way, right? So in the middle of that H, one thing you'll see, just pause it, you'll see kind of a shape which is, in my mind, right, this is just kind of, just being in the mindset here, is if I go back a little, one thing you'll see in the 3 of these here, let me zoom in so you can get to it. So in this top one here, the first one, you'll see it looks like a doorway, right, with the light shining through. But also in the left part of the H, you'll start to see that it looks almost like a hammer, right? And then in the second variation, there's still kind of that door shape, and it looks a little firm there. So I made a small variety to the third one there. And then this other one here at with the small dent in it, you'll see that it's really just about an indentation, really. It's a small mark that allows me to kind of add some style to an already kind of familiar shape, right? So when someone sees this, they don't need the crossbar of the H. They can kind of get a sense that this is an H, and it's just purely graphical, right? So this is just one variety here, and you can see I'm kind of struggling with it a little, just making sure that we have some symmetry on the shapes. So get that nice and neat. And I'm off to my copy paste again. I want to kind of see what I can do with this shape a little bit more, but as you'll see, there's not a whole lot else I can do with this shape other than to just kind of tweak it little by little. Not get too caught up in the details of it, because as I start to play, I want to make sure that there's an element of that paint, right? I mean, the hammer thing is pretty straightforward. I can make this logo a huge hammer, and that'll be pretty typical. It's not anything really super interesting, but maybe a little stylish P in there for the paint. I don't know. It looks kind of like like a butt or something. I don't know. It looks a little weird. So as you can see, I start to tweak this a little bit more, start to play with the size and the contrast of the negative space. A lot of folks, while we kind of go through this phase here, I start to peek back at some similarities, start organizing my thoughts a little bit. But one of the things that I enjoy about design, and that is really my first love, I grew up wanting to draw comic books. So since I was a kid, I've actually been involved in graphic arts and graphic design, and using tools like Photoshop, illustration, actual illustration, and using this with the digital tools. And that's how I first got started in the technology space. Growing up in technology here in the Bay Area is one thing, but once I started to use these tools to create art, whether it's web design or just getting radical with some of the tools, that's when it started to feel really awesome, like I could make something great out of this. So as you can see here, I'm starting to kind of get a little inspired. It's something that I've seen many times. Some of you don't know this, but back in the day, Warner Brothers had this kind of cool logo where they had these three little, little knobs or whatever. And I was kind of a little bit inspired by that. So you'll see me start to kind of play around with some of the shapes here. I just fast forward here, right? So we have the H, then we have the S, which is that slight bend there, and then the P, where that last little node or knob, it goes in the middle. But it also has a little bit of balance to the shape too. Not one I'll go with, but again, it's an experiment and a worthy one. So here, we're going to start playing around again with these two shapes. This is one that my eye and my thought process, my instinct started to just always go back to this one. I feel like this was almost like our hero logo, and it really set the tone for what I wanted to do here. So I started to kind of play with this, but then I said, I'm going to get rid of it and create a new shape and get a sense of like what I can do with kind of a similar graphic here. And this isn't something unusual. Many digital artists and designers, they go through with something like this iteration process. One person that I saw actually has the same process is Dan Draplin of Draplin Design. I didn't know the weird thing that I was doing of copying and pasting was a thing. So shout out to him, and a really good designer of logos and merchandise as well. So you see I've created these kind of two riffs off of each other, one with a little bit of a diamond inside, which looks like the top of a hammer, really. That's kind of the, like if you're a blacksmith and you hammer down, you see like a hammer from the middle. I was tempted to put like a little circle in it, but I felt like it would be a little distracting. So I ended up not going with that. but I did soften the edges of that second variation. Then I started to think, well, what about something that felt a little bit more industrial? And so what I did was I still kept my H, but this time, what if I just had two columns, right? Two nice columns that fit together, and then still utilizing that kind of diamond shape in the middle. Doesn't quite look and feel like a hammer, but it can definitely be something that, it looks like an instrument of some sort, an instrument of creation. So I thought that was kind of an interesting play there. So I started to kind of make a small variety. Again, I felt like, well, it kind of takes the hammer away, but the cool thing about this is that it starts to look like two columns, which, is old as time. So making sure I got my symmetry correct here. And I got rid of one of those. And then, So I put another shorter one, stubbier one here, but, iterated again. Then I kind of moved on. I went back to my original shape to just see, like, what if I do something that has a little bit of a bend there, like a combination of my hero as well as this one. And it just looks like a crooked doorway, really, or like a bent road of some sort. But it has kind of a curvy S shape right in the middle, and I'm tempted to not go that route because I've seen so many logos that are H and S, and then the middle of it where the brace is, they just make that into an S. And I just think that it's dated, and it also has been done before. I want something that feels at least somewhat unique. So just kept looking and seeing, like, are there some opportunities here, right? So what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So got a couple more to go. So 14 in what, how many minutes? 12 minutes. So not too bad. And again, this is just pure, like, stream of consciousness, just working through and iterating like crazy. Even minor iterations go a long way. So this is kind of an interesting older type. So the other ones that have this diamond are nice and tall, right? But this one actually feels much like an H, and maybe this could be some sort of alternative logo in the future. I'm not sure. But logos are important because it's kind of like the first impression that someone has with your brand. But it's not the only thing that matters when you're building a company, So many people get caught up on this and they get stuck on this, and that kind of delays their launch to the world. And one thing I would say about this is that I've seen brands really just, clobber themselves because they don't get started first. Build your product, build your service. Don't worry so much about the impression. One of the things, as I started to think about the DIY aspect of this brand, this fictional brand here, is that there's a guy who has no social media, no website, no anything, and he cuts my grass. He takes care of the exterior of my house, which is the curb appeal, and he has none of those technical tools, none of those digital tools. He doesn't have a logo. He just has a name. He's a guy, and he says, leave a check underneath the mat, and I'll come every Wednesday, right? So sometimes starting at very simply is always a good process. Get your service out there so that people understand what you do. The logos and the branding will come after that. It's totally fine to start without a brand. One of the things here, I came back to this kind of P shape in the middle. I don't know why. I figured maybe I'll just experiment and use an actual shape to figure that out, but it ended up being fruitless. I hate this. In the end, it just looked a little bit weird. But I did start to kind of say, well, maybe there is something that I can do with that thought of, when we were talking about how people just do the swirl in the middle, maybe I can create some other kind of balance element here that will work, right? So I start playing with this shape here, which felt a little bit more natural, right? It didn't feel as curvy or lazy or whatnot. So I start playing with this shape again, created a duplicate, and then flipped it vertically. and then flipped it horizontally, and then we have a nice H, and it has a little S, and then it has a little P in it, a little P shape in it. So I think that was pretty solid too. That's one of my favorites. So aside from my instinctual one, the very first one, which is going to be your first instincts, the way you see it in your mind, this one is one of my other favorites, aside from the column and the stubby diamond one there. So as you see, I'm kind of getting these organized because I think I'm pretty much done. So we got 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 almost. So this kind of gets me squared away, and I think I'm pretty much there. I'm just getting these a little organized so that when I show this to people, they'll actually have a way to give feedback and point out the ones that they like. So I hope that you all enjoyed this, because it's really about getting this to a point where it is not acceptable, but it just gets the juices flowing creatively. It gets it going creatively, and then you can actually start showing it around and talking about it. And I'll tell you, as much as I don't like people just starting with the logo and being kind of deadlocked there and worrying about all of that, it does serve as motivation and fuel many times. It really helps you to kind of clearly in your mind see it on t-shirts and billboards and advertisements, all these things that kind of get people familiar with your brand. You see it in your mind before anyone else sees it. And that's the great part of this, because it's not only a beautiful thing, but it also helps people really envision what your brand is about as well. So that's 17 logos in 17 minutes. I hope that I have entertained you. I hope that I've shown you a peek into my creative process. I know I talk a lot about software, and that's what I do, right? But I'm also very skilled as a designer as well. And taking you into this creative process is really exciting, because it's very, it's really feels natural to me. So again, that's 17 logos in 17 minutes. I want to invite you to please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. The biggest thing we can do is tell our friends, share this post, share this video, and of course, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, etc. All of these cool places where you can post opinions and post videos, I'm there. So in the meantime, yes, please do that. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or you're curious about what the next video is about, go ahead and DM me or add it to the comments. My name is Curpop, and I'm happy to be with you today. And thank you again for watching another episode of Strong Opinions, Loosely Held.